night, where the moonlight glows. The zombies lurking everywhere, that's how the story goes. Grab your gear.
Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, the place where nightmares breathe and survival is everything. Our latest tale, Zombie Apocalypse in the Jungle, plunges you into the heart of a lush wilderness hiding unspeakable horrors. What begins as an exotic adventure of beauty, love, and exploration twists into a fight against the unimaginable. Rotting corpses entangled with vines, spores that blur reality and hallucination, and a jungle that feels alive, hunting those who dare to enter. But this is more than a survival story. It's a battle of the mind. Are the undead real, or are they shadows born from something darker, something within? Friendships are tested, romances ignite in stolen moments, and every choice could be their last. Here at the Zombie Story Zone, every chapter pulls you deeper into suspense, horror, and shocking revelations. If you crave intense storytelling, psychological thrills, and spine-chilling twists, you're in the right place. Subscribe now. Join the survivors and experience Zombie Apocalypse in the Jungle. Because in this jungle, love and fear walk hand in hand, and no one escapes untouched. The Amazon rainforest unfurled like a living cathedral, its dense canopy swallowing shafts of sunlight and scattering them into shifting emerald mosaics across the jungle floor. Ancient trees towered above like stone pillars in a sacred temple, their tangled roots pushing through soil as rich and black as midnight. The air was alive with sound, a symphony of unseen creatures. The haunting trill of cicadas, the distant bellow of howler monkeys, and the steady drone of insects weaving their chorus into the heavy humidity. Every breath tasted of earth, moss, and rain, carrying a primal energy that both thrilled and unsettled. Into this untamed expanse descended 7 explorers. Their helicopters roar, fading into the distance as the machine lifted off, leaving them stranded in a small clearing hacked into the green. This was no ordinary expedition. It was an extravaganza, an adventure designed not only for discovery, but also for spectacle. Sponsored by Luxtrek, a high-end brand catering to the wealthy elite who sought danger dressed in decadence, the journey promised to blend exploration with opulent style. Their mission was to document rare flora and fauna, but equally to showcase the brand's cutting-edge gear. Sleek leather backpacks resistant to weather and wear, water-repellent outfits cut like haute couture, and high-tech gadgets polished to a shine. At the head of the group strode Marcus, their guide. Rugged, ex-military, and bred for survival, he was a man built of stone and silence. His piercing blue eyes scanned every shadow, and his square jaw was shaded with the perpetual stubble of a man who cared little for vanity. The jungle seemed to bow beneath his presence, as he swung a machete in deliberate arcs, carving a path through vines that hung like serpents from the canopy. His broad shoulders carried not just gear, but the weight of quiet authority. Trailing behind him was Javier, the photographer. Charisma clung to him like the sheen of sweat glistening on his skin. His tousled dark hair fell across his brow as he adjusted his lens, his warm smile catching the light like fire. Every few steps, his camera clicked, immortalizing the grandeur of the Amazon and the elegance of his companions. His eye, however, lingered on Sophia more often than the jungle itself. Ethan, the botanist, was quieter, absorbed in the greenery with near reverent attention. Tall and lean, his movements were precise, almost reverent, as if each plant were a text written by the earth itself. His notebooks were already filling with sketches and scrawls, the discipline of a man more at home with leaves than people. Yet when Isabella leaned near, brushing his arm as she asked about a rare orchid, his sharp intellect softened, his cool manner faltering into shy warmth. The women gave the jungle a surreal glow, their beauty contrasting with the raw wilderness. Sophia, the model, was a vision of poise. Auburn hair spilled like flame down her back, and her emerald eyes sparkled even beneath the oppressive heat. She adjusted her designer pack with a graceful twist, its gleaming leather more runway than trail gear. Every pose she struck, even when wiping sweat from her brow, looked sculpted for Javier's lens. Lila, the actress, played the jungle as though it were her stage. Her sultry gaze and quick wit lit the air with mischief. She teased Marcus mercilessly, her laughter chiming like wind through crystal, tugging cracks into his granite exterior. "Careful, soldier," she murmured at one point, brushing past him with deliberate closeness, "or the vines will fall in love with you before I do." His lips twitched in what might have been a smile. Isabella, the environmentalist, was the group's beating heart. Sun-kissed skin and eyes full of conviction marked her as someone who lived for more than vanity. She knelt often, her fingers tracing orchids or moss with reverence, whispering names like prayers. She found kinship with Ethan, their shared love of plants weaving threads of quiet intimacy as they cataloged specimens together. Zoe was the final star in the constellation. A social media influencer, she transformed every moment into spectacle. Her laughter was contagious, her energy relentless. As she posed against ancient trees or perched atop mossy stones, her flawless style gleaming against the wilderness. To her millions of followers, the jungle was now a runway, and she its crowned queen. Together they cut a tableau that seemed almost mythic. 7 glamorous adventurers, their waterproof watches gleaming, their fitted outfits clinging to toned bodies, moving in harmony through the tangled heart of the world's greatest wilderness. Laughter, flirtation, and the clicking of Javier's camera filled the heavy air. Sophia leaned close to Javier, whispering, "This is paradise," her voice dripping like honey. Ethan and Isabella exchanged shy smiles over a fern's delicate fronds. Lila's teasing softened Marcus's edge, while Zoe choreographed their progress into a dazzling performance. But paradise was never what it seemed. As Marcus hacked through another tangle of vines, spores shook loose, invisible against the golden shafts of light. They drifted like dust motes, dancing innocently in the humid air before slipping into lungs with each breath. No one noticed. Not yet. The forest was watching. Every rustle, every snap of a twig underfoot seemed to whisper secrets, as though the very trees were alive with intent. The 7 basked in the beauty, blind to the menace coiling around them. What they thought was a glamorous adventure was already shifting, subtle, insidious, into something else. The jungle had welcomed them. Soon, it would claim them. By the 3rd day, the Amazon had tested them. Rain fell in sudden torrents, soaking even their water-resistant jackets, while biting insects swarmed despite the high-tech repellents they carried. Yet spirits remained high. They foraged for acai berries along the riverbank. Their fingers stained purple as laughter echoed through the trees. Javier framed the moment with his lens, capturing Sophia's emerald eyes sparkling as she held a cluster of berries to her lips. Nearby, Marcus taught Lila how to spear fish from the shallows, her playful shrieks of frustration drawing a rare smirk from him. Zoe, as always, posed dramatically on a slick rock, broadcasting snippets of luxury survival to her millions of followers. It was then that Ethan noticed it, the silence. The rainforest, usually alive with shrill calls and chatter, grew muted. No birds, no insects. The very air seemed to thicken. "Something's wrong," Marcus murmured, scanning the tree line. Their unease deepened when the group stumbled onto a moss-choked fence, half swallowed by vines. Behind it stood a cluster of metal huts, their corrugated walls rusting, windows broken. An old sign dangled from one post, Instituto Amazónico de Investigación Médica, a research outpost, forgotten, abandoned. Inside, the air reeked of mildew and iron. Tables were overturned, papers scattered across the floor like leaves after a storm. On the walls, streaks of dried blood marred peeling paint. Ethan crouched, sifting through notebooks scrawled in frantic handwriting. "Look at this," he said, his brow furrowed. "Notes on a viral anomaly, something tied to a rare fungus." The words sent a chill through Isabella. She brushed her hand across a page filled with sketches of spores, her voice hushed. They were studying the rainforest's fungi, and it looks like something went wrong. Zoe, unshaken, leaned toward a shelf where a vial glowed faintly green under a cracked UV lamp. Her phone was already in hand. "This is gold," she whispered, framing the eerie glow against her flawless features. "The followers will eat this up." "Zoe, don't," Marcus began, but her camera was already rolling. A sound cut him off, a groan, wet, guttural, inhuman. From the corner of the room, a figure staggered into the flickering light. Once a man in a lab coat, now his flesh sagged gray and torn, vines piercing through his skin like grotesque veins. His eyes were cloudy, vacant, yet fixed on them with chilling intent. The group froze. Then the creature lunged. Marcus moved first. With a roar, he shoved the decayed scientist back against a wall, metal clanging as he shouted, "Run!" Chaos erupted. More figures emerged from the shadows. Scientists, researchers, their bodies rotted and half-consumed by vines. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, pulled by something other than life. Sophia screamed, her scarf ripped from her neck as she tied it tightly around Zoe's arm where a vine's thorn had scratched her. Isabella, thinking fast, crushed leaves she recognized, antimicrobial herbs, and pressed them against the wound. "This fungus," Ethan gasped, eyes wild as he backed toward the door. "It's not just infecting them. It's controlling them, a parasitic spore, reanimating the dead." Lila grabbed Marcus's hand, pulling him toward the exit as Javier snapped a desperate photograph of the monsters closing in, his camera flash briefly illuminating their hollow faces. The group burst back into the suffocating jungle air, hearts hammering, breaths ragged. Behind them, the groans echoed, carrying through the trees like a curse. The rainforest was no longer a paradise. It was a graveyard that still walked. The days bled together, marked not by the sun's rise and fall, but by the constant rhythm of survival. Morning meant rationing the dwindling supplies from their luxury packs. Protein bars, vacuum-sealed fruit, sparkling mineral water now replaced by river water, they painstakingly boiled over fires of damp wood. Designer leather straps and gleaming buckles dulled with wear, though the explorers carried themselves with the elegance of those who refused to be broken. Spears fashioned from sharpened branches replaced their sleek tools. Marcus taught them to harden the tips in flame, his calm authority keeping panic at bay. They hunted small animals, fished from the river, and gathered edible plants guided by Isabella's encyclopedic knowledge. Ethan sketched notes even in exhaustion, recording everything about the fungus that haunted them, his neat handwriting smeared by sweat and ash. Yet even amid hunger and fear, beauty persisted. Zoe, ever radiant, insisted on bathing in the crystalline waterfall that cut through the jungle. She called Javier to her side, laughing as the water poured over them in silver sheets. Their clothes clung to toned bodies, translucent under the cascade, and passion broke through fear as their lips met. The roar of the falls swallowed the distant groans, if only for a heartbeat. "You're my light," Javier murmured against her mouth, brushing wet hair from her face. She pressed closer, the kiss a defiant promise that glamour and desire could survive even here. Elsewhere, Marcus and Lila took turns at night watch, their silhouettes outlined by flickering firelight. She teased him at first, her voice low and sultry, but over time, her sharp wit gave way to quiet honesty. One night, when the jungle's shadows pressed too heavily, she leaned against him, his arm instinctively wrapping around her. "You don't smile enough," she whispered. "Not much to smile about out here," he replied, though his lips curved faintly, the smallest surrender. Their bond grew, forged not in luxury, but in the steady heartbeat of shared vigilance. Ethan and Isabella found their connection in gentler moments. Bent over leaves and bark, their fingers brushed again and again as they cataloged plants that might serve as medicine or food. She admired his discipline. He admired her passion. When she laughed at one of his dry remarks, the sound lifted his weary spirit more than any discovery. Their flirtations became a quiet anchor, a reminder that tenderness could bloom even in decay. And Sophia, regal, poised, and radiant despite dirt streaking her cheeks, emerged as the group's quiet center. Her calm reassurances steadied Zoe when fear threatened to unravel her, and her elegance, even in torn clothing, reminded them of what they were fighting for. She never admitted it aloud, but the glances she shared with Javier, moments of unspoken yearning, strengthened her resolve. Affection, however fragile, gave her fire, but the jungle gave nothing freely. Every rustle carried menace. Twice they were ambushed. Zombies erupting from thickets, their decayed bodies entwined with vines, skin mottled green with mold. They blended so perfectly with the foliage that even Marcus's sharp eyes sometimes missed them until it was too late. One nearly tore into Ethan before Isabella struck it with a flaming branch, the firelight exposing its hollow sockets. They fought not just with weapons, but with their ingenuity. Sophia's silk scarf bound wounds as a makeshift bandage. Zoe's mirror compact became a signal device. Marcus's military knife carved paths when their spears failed. Each attack tested their unity, and each narrow escape bound them closer. By nightfall, the jungle seemed alive with groans and whispers. Shadows moved where none should. Vines trembled as though stirred by unseen hands. Exhaustion weighed heavily, but love, passion, and loyalty sparked within the group, fragile flames against the growing darkness. The rainforest was no longer just a wilderness. It was a predator, and it would not stop until their sparks of humanity were extinguished. The night was suffocating. The fire sputtered low, its smoke curling into the starless canopy above. Humidity wrapped around the camp like a second skin, clinging and heavy. The explorers huddled close, fatigue pressing their eyes shut even as the forest whispered with restless movement. Then the whispers grew louder. A snap of twigs, the hiss of leaves shifting unnaturally, the moan of something that was neither human nor beast. From the shadows, they emerged, dozens of them. Decayed figures, skin mottled with fungus, their eyes glowing faintly as vines writhed across their limbs. A horde, drawn by the heat and sound of the living. Their hands clawed through the underbrush, pulling themselves forward with jerking, unnatural steps. "Get ready!" Marcus barked, his voice cutting through panic. The creatures surged and chaos erupted. Javier, instinctively raising his camera, unleashed a burst of blinding light. The flash crackled through the dark, stunning the horde for a heartbeat. Their hollow eyes recoiled, limbs flailing in confusion. "Again!" Sophia cried, her voice sharp. Click. Flash. The jungle lit up in violent bursts of white. It wasn't much, but it was enough to disorient them as Marcus charged. Machete swinging in brutal arcs. Blood and sap sprayed the air, the metallic tang of gore mingling with the earthy rot of the forest. Isabella, trembling but fierce, grabbed a fallen branch and swung it like a staff. Each strike cracked bone and splintered vines, her environmentalist's hands now steady with primal survival. Zoe darted between the monsters, her agility saving her from gnashing teeth. Her luxury jacket, once pristine, now bore slashes where claws had nearly torn her apart. Lila's screams, high and terrified at first, transformed into raw battle cries. She stabbed wildly with a sharpened stick Marcus had given her days before, her hair whipping loose as sweat and blood streaked her face. The horde pressed harder, their groans vibrating in the explorers' bones. Supplies toppled, food scattered into the mud, precious water flasks crushed under trampling feet. Yet through loss came resolve. Fear no longer bound them. Survival welded them into something stronger. Romance became their hidden strength. Javier fought harder with Zoe's hand clutching his sleeve. Marcus shielded Lila as if her life were his own, his every strike fueled by something more than duty. Ethan, nearly dragged down by grasping hands, found Isabella pulling him up, their eyes locking in silent promise before they shoved back together. And Sophia, once untouchable, the embodiment of poise, was transformed. Her auburn hair clung to her face, blood streaked her arm, but her emerald eyes burned with fire. Standing atop a fallen log, she raised her voice above the carnage. "We're stronger than this," she cried, her tone both command and encouragement. "We are not prey, we are alive." Her words struck like steel through despair. The group rallied, their movements unified, every strike purposeful. With Marcus's strategy, Javier's flashes, Isabella's ferocity, Zoe's agility, Lila's courage, and Sophia's rallying cry, they drove the horde back inch by inch. At last, the jungle fell quiet again. The creatures retreated into the shadows, their groans fading until only the crackle of the dying fire remained. Exhausted, the group collapsed into the mud, their chests heaving, clothes torn and stained. Supplies were gone, but something more valuable remained: resolve. They clung to each other, kisses pressed against bloodied brows, hands interlaced with desperate tenderness. The night had tested them, and they had survived. Yet as they drifted into uneasy rest, a new dread whispered. The jungle had not unleashed its full fury. The vines themselves seemed to pulse, leaves rustling though no wind stirred. And deep within, the forest's true hunger waited. Weeks of flight and hunger had stripped them bare. Their glamorous clothes were torn, their high-tech gear battered, yet something within them refused to die. Then, like a gift from the gods, they found it. A river. Its waters shimmered in pale sunlight, winding endlessly toward a horizon that promised civilization. For a moment, no one spoke. They simply stared, trembling with awe. Sophia knelt, her fingers grazing the surface as if it might vanish. Javier captured her silhouette in the fading light, desperate to preserve proof of hope. They worked together, hacking logs with Marcus's machete, binding them with vines, building a raft that groaned but held. When it slid into the current, they climbed aboard as though it were a chariot to salvation. The jungle receded behind them, a wall of green shadows. On the river, peace came in fragile fragments. The water's lullaby drowned the moans that had haunted their nights. Under the stars, they let themselves breathe again. Sophia leaned against Javier's chest, eyes closed, her exhaustion softened by the warmth of his embrace. Ethan and Isabella spoke in murmurs, sketching futures beyond the rainforest, their fingers knotted together. And Marcus, the soldier of stone, turned gentle. With starlight in his eyes, he took Lila's hand. "When this is over," he said, voice unsteady but resolute, "I want forever with you." Lila's lips parted in surprise, then curved into a trembling smile. "Then forever is yours." Zoe, bruised but still glowing, leaned back and whispered to herself, "We'll make it." Her words were fragile, but the others clung to them like a prayer. But salvation never comes untainted. The river grew restless, its current pulling them faster, louder. Ahead, white water frothed. Too late, they realized. The roar was a waterfall. The raft jolted, splintering beneath their feet as they plunged into chaos. Darkness swallowed them. When their eyes fluttered open, they were no longer in the river. No jungle. No monsters. The steady hum of rotors filled the air. They lay inside a helicopter, bandaged, IVs dripping into their veins. Medics hovered, their voices clipped and professional. "You're safe," one assured them. "The spores cause hallucinations, a bioweapon project gone wrong. Everything you fought, it wasn't real. The wounds were self-inflicted." The words sank into silence. Was it possible? Had the hordes, the attacks, the waterfall, all been fevered illusions? Their laughter, their kisses, their battles. Just chemical dreams scripted by fungus? Sophia turned her head toward the window. The jungle stretched below, endless and glistening. For a moment she swore she saw movement between the trees, a cluster of pale faces, vines shifting like limbs. Her breath caught. Zoe reached for her phone, yet found nothing in her pack. Had she ever recorded those perfect waterfall kisses? Xavier's camera lay at his side, shattered, though he remembered pressing the shutter again and again. Marcus's hand clasped Lila's, solid and warm. But when she looked into his eyes, she wondered, did he truly propose? Or was it another phantom born of spores? The helicopter vibrated, steady, mechanical. And yet, it felt fragile, as if it too might dissolve at any second into vines, rot, and moans. None spoke the question aloud, but it hung heavy between them. Were they rescued? Or still dreaming in the grip of the jungle's breath? No one knew. Zombie apocalypse in the jungle. The helicopter blades cut through the heavy air, lifting the survivors high above the endless green sea of the Amazon. From this vantage, the jungle seemed almost peaceful. An emerald paradise hiding the nightmares that had consumed their minds and hearts. Sophia leaned against the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Marcus held Lila's hand, yet his grip trembled, as though unsure whether this escape was real. Javier's camera, cracked and bloodied, rested silently on his lap. No one dared review the footage. Ethan whispered to Isabella about spores, hallucinations, and how easily perception could fracture. But when Zoe looked down at the forest, her eyes widened. Among the shadows, she swore she saw movement, figures watching, waiting. Was it the spores still playing tricks, or had something truly followed them out of the jungle? The pilot spoke of safety, of civilization just beyond the horizon. Yet inside, doubt gnawed at each of them. Were they rescued, or dreaming in the grip of the parasite's cruel illusions? In the end, love survived, but certainty did not. And as the jungle vanished beneath them, one question lingered. Did they ever really escape?
It's always a thrill, come and let your courage show. Fight or flight, will unite, as the horror unfolds. In the zombie story zone, adventure never grows old. Welcome to the zombie story zone, where the tales of the undead are rightly known. Join the hunt, uncover the fight, in the zombie story zone.